Hello guys and welcome to today's video. So today we're back with the top 10s. It's been about 4 or 5 months. December was the last time we were doing a top 10 and they seem to get quite a lot of interest. So we're going to go back and it's going to be top 10 champs in each class. We're going to begin with Mutants, as you can see on screen. And then Cosmic, Skill, Science, Tech, Mystic. And then we'll do top 10 champs in the entire game, in my opinion. So obviously this is all in my opinion. This is all champs that maybe I've used, so I think they're a little better than champs that you guys might have used. There's probably a champ in here who might not be as high for you guys as they are in my list. So let's just jump straight in, beginning with Mutant, and then at the end of the video I'll have a little sort of a little table to show who the top 10 was in December, what my top 10 is now, and just sort of comparing the two. So yeah, let's jump into this video. So at number 10, we are going to be beginning with a champ who is very good in long form content, was a very good champ in Abyss, and was really good for the Mutant challenge, or the Cringe challenges, and that's going to be STRYFE. For me, STRYFE is quite a strong champ. He obviously makes it into the top 10. He edges it obviously over champs like Jubilee. If we go back, we can see them a bit better. Storm doesn't quite make this list. Weapon X doesn't quite make this list. Toad was somebody who I was very close to putting at 10, and the same with Iceman with his new buff. But as I said, at number 10 is STRYFE. As I was saying, STRYFE is a champ who was very useful for the long form contents, the Abysses. You're able to build him up really, really nicely with the telepathic charges, giving him sort of an extra level of attack rating. And I think that was sort of why the reason I like STRYFE so much is because not only did he have that, the telepathic charges of 20, but it meant that he couldn't be affected by ability accuracy. He also gained about 120 attack rating, which is quite a lot per telepathic charge. So if you add him up 20 charges, then he was very strong, and I think that's why a lot of people used him. He also had a few okay synergies with he had one with Apocalypse, which was quite nice. The shocks that you can put on him do a lot of damage, and then when he is a horseman, he is then unblockable at 20 telepathic charges. So by keeping these up, keeping them throughout fights, it did make him very, very useful, and it's why he makes my number 10 spot. He had a note. I didn't mind his Sig ability, but as I said, his Sig and synergies. This is just a champion all round, so it's taking into consideration their attacking ability, while also how strong they can be on the short forms like Battlegrounds, and that's sort of where I think STRYFE's let down. If you've got a good miss counter, STRYFE's not too tricky, and if you just wait out his miss, again, it's not something to worry about too much. So STRYFE comes in at number 10, and as we move into number 9, in the previous list, this champ was a little bit higher up. After using him a bit more, reading more about him, I just think that this Magneto, and the same for actual red Magneto, he was very likely to move in this list, but I've gone with white Magneto moving. That's just because his buff was good, but I don't think it was as good as red Mag's. Red Mag's cancels out a lot of stuff, whereas white Magneto maybe doesn't so much. You do have extra attack rating, which is always nice. This, I don't think, actually quite reverses the class disadvantage that you get, so he's not quite as useful. They both have different things, so like this white Mags, or House of X Mags, he obviously has the persistent charge, which allows you to put on guidance. The guidance is very useful because it can trigger passive stun with the parry instead of it being a debuff. This means that some champs who are stun immune or who shrug very quickly, like your Kingpins and your your Agent Venoms are much easier when taking on. But that does mean that he is a bit more of like a champ that you just bring in rather than being someone who is absolutely essential. Like Red Mags can be, I just think White Mags is decent, but isn't maybe as strong as Red Mags, and probably isn't as strong as some of the champs coming up in this list. I think House of X Magneto is good. Not good at all on defense, really not difficult to take on, doesn't have the unstoppable. If you know which special attack is which, it's very easy to dex. And yeah, I think as an attacker, very good. As a champ to have in your deck for guidance on questing, he's quite good, but in Battlegrounds, he's very useless, and is why he sort of fell down this list a lot more. And the champ above him, who absolutely excels in Battlegrounds, is Domino. She doesn't just excel in Battlegrounds, she's also amazing in War. Anywhere where you can place a defender, Domino excels. For me, she's probably the best defender in the game between her and Korg. I think you're bound to take some damage if you go in against her, whereas with Korg, especially with the new Quicksilver Professor X synergy, he's not purifying. You're able to sort of fight him a lot easier, and that makes it a little bit easier, especially with Bishop as well. But for Domino, you get that critical failure damage when anything fails to trigger. That obviously then comes in. That then comes throughout the fight with luck, or if she's sort of unlucky. I think she's very, very strong on defense. As an attacker, she's very good because she has the obviously the synergy with Red Hulk and Massacre. Just because that, you can absolutely shred through champs with that. The parry heavies with Domino means she's very useful. Incinerate is quite strong as well, as it's needed in the 8.1 STRYFE boss. There's a few bosses where you need to be you sort of need to go in and have an easy way of putting Incinerates on, and I think Domino does that very, very nicely. As I said, being the best defending champ in the game, or best champ as a defender, she's bound to make it high up on this list, and she actually does jump up a spot and goes into 8. And yeah, I think she definitely deserves to be here. At number 7, this was a little bit of a switch up. I've gone for Bishop. I think Bishop is another champ who is very strong, and with the new 7-star, can't quite think, stat focus, I believe it's called, where you can pick where you can boost up champs. I think Bishop will be one of those champs who's really good. Critical rating or crit chance. If you can boost that up, that'd be massive. The problem with Bishop is not every one of his SP2's crit, which is really annoying. Isn't ideal, and then fighting him, he's like Kitty is a perfect Bishop counter. Obviously, you can build up your temps by having the SP1. You're able to sort of dex that SP2 if you're used to fighting Bishop as well. And I think he maybe isn't as difficult a defender to play against as you get used to him. So that's why for me he's sort of at 7. He was I think at 6 in the last list, but because of another champ's rise, he has unfortunately fell down 1. But don't get me wrong, I think his Foresight Sig ability, where he comes in with another with bars of power, depending on how many he ended with in the previous fight, I think is really nice, especially if you're in a quest where special attacks are doing an absolute ton. I can't think, the 400% node. I can't think what that one's called off the top of my head, but obviously you guys know which node I mean. It's really useful, especially with that SP2. Like I said, if it crits, it does a ton of damage. But if it doesn't, he is a little bit slower. But I do still think Bishop is a really, really good champ. I think the Incinerates that he's able to put on, the prowesses that he can build up just very easily by parrying and then turning those into regeneration is also very, very strong. I think also I believe Bishop is one of the first 7 stars, so that'll be really exciting to see. I think that could make him jump up in the next list, as I know they're due out around May. So yeah, I think Bishop comes in at 7. For me, he just doesn't quite edge this champ above him, and yeah, let's jump into who that champ is. At 6, I do have Professor X. I really thought Professor X could jump to 5. When looking at this list last time, the top 5 actually stays the same, but I think that's probably to be expected. I think Professor X was the only champ who could have gone into 5, and that's just for the sole reason of I have got him, I have played him a lot more, and he is by far one of the strongest champs, one of the most fun champs to play with. If you get used to him and get more skillful with him, I think he can be really, really good. You know, the channeling, getting up those prowesses, having 2 prowesses per special attack if you hold your heavy before you chuck it, getting up to that mind control and then just absolutely obliterating your opponent with SP2s with lots of prowesses up means he can do an absolute ton of damage. The fact that he has the falter makes him a tricky defender if you're not so used to playing him or you're not looking at the timer. The vigilance makes him a very good miss counter, probably one of the best in the game, especially obviously if they're not tech or have the I can't think what it's called, sidekick shielding. He is probably the best miss counter in my opinion. Very easy to get him up while when he's got his sig, he's awakened. You can build up about 1 channeling charge per second. They get that to 25, and that is means he's basically an evade and miss counter for the whole fight. I'm going to try and do Grandmaster Gauntlet very soon, and you'll see that he takes Spider-Ham out very nicely. Korg, he's probably the best Korg counter in my opinion, him or Bishop. So yeah, I think Professor X is one of those who could have gone into the 5 spot. The Quicksilver synergy that you'll see here, I wonder, I can't remember if it's in here. No, it's not, but it's with Quicksilver. So if we just move, wrong way. If we just move 1 across, I'll be able to show you. What the hell? Oh, that's because I'm on mute. Anyway, the Quicksilver synergy just allows skill champs to not purify any of his debuffs. So like, you can parry with parry stun with Professor X, which makes him way easier to fight like Kingpin champs, like Kingpin, Agent Venom, other champs who seem to shrug quite a lot. So yeah, I think Professor X comes in at 6, but is very, very close to going in at number 5, and that's because at 5 I've got Red Mags. I think Red Mags for me was quite close to dropping down, and that is just because with quests now, for me personally, if you're questing, if you're uncollected or cavalier player and you're questing, Red Mags is very, very good. He's probably the 2nd, 3rd best mutant to take into quests. The fact that he can turn off unstoppable, any sort of evading from a tech champ, the ability accuracy is just absolutely diminished when he's put on. Same with regen as well. I just think he's one of the best questing champs, but now that I've completed 8.1, 8.2 is due to come out. You don't know how much of that will be Red Mags will be essential for. I just think that maybe the champs above him and Professor X are potentially a bit more useful in both Battlegrounds and then Alliance War and event quests. You know, the shorter, easier content to take in where you've got to be quick. Red Mags is parry heavy, up to about 50 prowesses, and then SP3 is very good. It does a lot of damage, but it does take time, and probably not too much time that he's not an essential attacker in Battlegrounds. And then on the defensive end, if you get used to his unstoppable and just sort of don't let him throw heavy attacks, again, he's someone who can be taken out. I do think he's an amazing champ. For me, he remains in the top 5, but yeah, Professor X was very close to taking him, but I do think he's an essential champ for questing. So Magneto comes in at 5. At 4, maybe a little bit of bias, as this champ was one of my most enjoyed champs. I love the lethal, the death factors and the death spores. The sig ability is amazing if you get it up to 200. The fact that when he's sig 200, you're able to put the heavy attacks, keep those death spores on, make him really good at taking down damage. The dual immunity makes him really good. The only problem with Omega Red is that investment. Not only do you have to get him once, you then got to get him a second time, and then once you've got him the second time, you then have to awaken him, you then have to take him to sig 200. So The fact that there's a lot of investment needed, and for a champ like Omega Red, he is sort of slowly. If you've put suicides on, he's very good, probably one of the best champs in the game. But without that suicides, you've got really three things: Sig 200, Awakened, and suicides that you all need to make him sort of as good as he possibly can be, which means as soon as you pull him, you probably can't use him unless you've got those things available. So it's for me why he's number 4 and not number 3. There is a lot of chatter of him being sort of an aging champ, but whereas I have to disagree. He's very unique. He has a different playstyle to anyone else. You've just got to stay close and keep that degeneration heavy on so that your spores don't fall off, and you can do an absolute ton of damage. As a defender, a little bit weaker, but still very strong for battlegrounds. Stronger as an attacker, of course, but if you are constantly close to him when he's defending, he can do a lot of damage. So Omega Red comes in at 4, and yeah, the top 3 are obvious. It's obviously Apocalypse, Archangel, Kitty Pryde, but in what order? As I said, if you watched this one in December, you would know the order because it has remained the same, and Apocalypse comes in at 3. So Apocalypse comes in at 3 for me just because on his own, he's a good champ. He's not a great champ. I wouldn't say he's maybe better than Omega Red or Magneto on his own, but the fact that he can give Horseman, the fact that he has some really nice synergies, his Sig ability is massive. It allows him to sort of regenerate quite a lot of health going into your next fight, which I think is very, very useful. It means that you can sort of keep him out of the fight, bring him back in quests. Again, another one who's amazing for both short form and long form questing, both the Abyss and newer acts coming in. As a Cavalier, you want to rank him up instantly, same as Uncollected. Maybe if I pulled him now, I would rank him up, but I don't think he'd be maybe an essential rank up for me, but it's very, very useful having that Horseman ability, and sort of makes number 2 and number 1 a lot stronger, as well as every other mutant in the class. And I think that's why he's so good. We've seen 6-star Wolverine as a Horseman be amazing. We've seen Archangel be really good. The same for Magneto, very, very useful with Apocalypse. So I just think Apocalypse being able to make everyone else better makes him a very, very good champ to have. But also, he is very good. His SP2 can do a ton of damage. His the fact that he is able to sort of go immune to anything technically in the game, as long as he's sort of felt it once, is very useful. And I think he is a champ who many people, if they do should rank up. But yeah, I definitely rate Apocalypse. He comes in at 3, and the top 2 are obviously quite obvious here. At 2, we have Archangel. I mean, Archangel, I didn't really know much about Archangel. I wasn't a big fan of him until I got him. And then as soon as I got him, you sort of realise how good his abilities are. Every time they hit into your block, or a percentage of the time they hit into the block, a poison is put on them. Then parry heavying basically means that you can constantly get neurotoxins. No one really is immune to the neurotoxin if they're not poison and bleed immune. Poison and bleed immunity as a combo are becoming quite rare. So even if somebody's bleed immune, you can still bring them in with Archangel. He won't get the neurotoxins, but he'll still be quite useful. The stun when the neurotoxin runs out is also very, very good. And I think as a Horseman, Archangel becomes really, really strong. The only problem I have personally is that when he is a 5-star, and he's being hit into the block, or I'm parry heavying all the time, I'm taking quite a lot of block damage, but that's just because he's a 5-star. Get him as a 6-star and that just won't happen. I think Archangel can absolutely shred. He is by far one of the best nukes in the game to finish a fight instantly. Especially if no one is bleed and poison immune. Those two immunities are sort of slowly dying out. A couple of years ago, they were on most new champs, whereas now you don't see many. You see a lot of shocks and like power drains and power locks, not so much bleed and poison. So having a very strong nuke is essential, and I think that's why Archangel is my second best mutant in the whole game. And at number 1, it's obvious, we've got Kitty Pryde. Unfortunately, there weren't really any new mutant champs who came out since the last video. We've most recently had Sauron, Toad, and Captain Britain. Toad is probably the closest to coming into the top 10 out of all the champs. Him or Weapon X, I wasn't sure. I think Iceman could probably slip in instead of STRYFE once he gets his buff. But yeah, Kitty Pryde's obviously a number 1. I've got a Sigged 1. I don't need really anymore. I think she only needs to be, for me, level 1, just because I can, if I am in phase, she doesn't take any damage. It means you can fight champs like Nick Fury and those who, like Nick Fury is a prime example. You know, he hits into your block and causes him, you cause him to miss, then you don't take any damage from him. The phase is paused, and he's basically the easiest person to fight with Kitty Pryde once you get used to it. She can take so many fights. The fact that she takes no damage when she's phased means that, like, Degenerations, Gallon's Harvest, Quicksilver's Whiplash, if you time being in phase perfectly for that, you won't take that damage. And I think that is so cool. I think it's a very unique ability. The fact that she can also be phased through SP3s means she does, if you time that right again and you're a good Kitty Pryde player, then you're able to take no damage from SP3s as well. And I think she's just an amazing champ, especially when she's teamed up with Tigra and Ghost. She becomes amazing. Tigra gives her that unblockable while above 10, and Ghost, who is there, also allows her to grant 2 additional prowesses each time she's missed. So you can basically keep those prowesses constantly updated and efficient, which is, I think, a really good synergy to have. So obviously Kitty Pryde, don't really need to say too much about her. The massive SB2 damage when your temperature's all the way up makes her a great bishop counter, as I said. But yeah, I think she's just an amazing champ. She is obviously the best mutant in my opinion. I don't think there's much conversation to have about that. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this list. If you have, please leave a like. Let me know in the comments down below who you think your top 10 mutants would be, or maybe top 5. Should Magneto just drop out for Professor X? Is Professor X too high? Would you have Archangel above Apocalypse or Apocalypse above Archangel? Who do you think's misplaced? Let me down in the let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I really have enjoyed these videos. So yeah, I'll be making the rest of these coming now. I'm due to go on holiday, so I'm going to batch record all of these today, but there aren't any new champs coming in the next sort of 7 days, so I pretty much know that where I've ranked everyone is where I truly believe they are. I'm going to put as I said, about the Excel sheet. I'm not going to have it at the end of these videos and make it too long for you guys. I'm going to put it in my Discord, so if you want to see where they used to be and where they are now, or you want to edit these, that will be in my Discord, link down below in the description. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in tomorrow's Cosmic video, and have a good day. Goodbye.